Hi there. This is a continuation off of the last two videos. I wrote some notes. I'm going to try my best to try to summarize things as much as possible for this triangle thing, how I've been seeing it. So I did write some notes so I can try to guide you. So I wanted to start with the shape here. This one is empty, and I don't, there's no rainbow because it has knowledge, but it doesn't have the rainbow yet. So I think that there's like two ways that you could come to this. So you could go the way of learning about Jesus. I think I explained this in a previous video. Or you could follow the old law, which can result in two types of stars. One star shown here is representative of people who are following these teachings and don't know that they're missing an important piece of knowledge. And so there would be two groups here in the sense that the ones that do know the knowledge, but they're not using it correctly, that could lead to an empty Star of David. And then the ones who, like the top here, they're, at the bottom of these groups. I see them as part of a star group because if you put that shape together, trying to make a Star of David, if you're missing pieces, it turns into a star shape. So that's why in one of my past videos, I was trying to explain. Now, I don't think everybody's in this group. I'm just, I think this symbology kind of helps to understand the triangles things I've been talking about. I was showing how, like, with Christmas, often there's a star, in our cartoons and movies, and but it's not a Star of David. It's almost like a star that's missing pieces. And with the cut tree in the house, and I explained how this is the way it should look. It should be all the knowledge together. And when you put it all together properly with all the pieces, it turns into a rainbow. And part of how I got led there as well is one of the first things I learned is in the Bible, it's split into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament being the original, before God had stepped in. I explained a little bit of that in past videos. So, and then when God's Son, Jesus, was sent, he was sent with the knowledge, like, to put things in order, but the way things were supposed to be. But Jesus was sent through the Jewish people, and I think, he's meant to be their capstone, to complete their knowledge, because they have the earth knowledge, bodily knowledge is what they started out with the Ten Commandments. But God was disappointed because their hearts, they had to work on their hearts. Because, for example, stealing, one of God's commandments, don't steal. Jesus trying to point out, you wouldn't steal if you loved your brothers and sisters. Excuse me, I have a sore throat today. So when he came, like, he both abolished the old law, but also kept it intact in the sense that, he came with the two commandments of his own, which was to love God with all your heart and love others as yourself. But that was in relation to the 10 Commandments from before. He was saying, like, don't just do that on the outside. Work on it on the inside. Because if you love one another, you wouldn't do these things to hurt your brothers and sisters. So here, Jesus came with the spiritual knowledge, but a lot of the original Jewish people, they don't accept this knowledge. And so when Christians, and I don't know what all the churches are called still, but anyone that follows Jesus, a Jesus believer, I'll just say a Jesus believer, when they read the New Testament and the teachings that Jesus brought, if you have been studying, you'll notice that a lot of the codes and puzzles, the way to crack the parables and things that Jesus was teaching, he used the Old Testament as a key, right? Because he came through the Jewish people to save them and the rest of the world. So when you put that capstone down of using the Old Testament to help define certain words, such as the lamp is defined in the Old Testament, things like that, it helps to bring the book together. So that's why when you put these two together, it turns into a rainbow with it, kind of a symbolic representation here with the Old Testament, the 12 fathers. They had 12 stones, and those 12 stones on our planet, they just so happen to be stones that if you shine pure light on them, they turn into rainbow colors. So these are two parts. The third part would be soul, body knowledge, body, spirit knowledge, and then the third part to come in would be the soul knowledge, the light, the rainbow. So when you put that all together, that's rainbow. And I know, like, these triangle things may look strange and a bit complicated, but for me, being a new believer and someone that's part native that strongly disliked churches and the history of the church systems and harm that was done, I would personally need a lot of evidence for me to even consider reading the Bible. So that's why I'm putting this together. So I hope I'm being clear. So, this is heavenly knowledge, because heavenly knowledge, it ends with Jesus was teaching, love God with all your heart and love others as yourself, because he's teaching that our brothers and sisters are not our enemies, that spiritual wickedness is our enemy. And forgiveness, he teaches forgiveness. This is part of how, even though if someone's done a lot of wrong to you, if you can follow his way of trying to forgive other people for mistakes they're making, right? Because he also forgives you for all the mistakes you've made. So loving others and loving God, that's a huge part here. And here, like the empty stars that don't have rainbow, empty, doesn't have all the knowledge yet. That's kind of how I see things. And my daughter put this up here because that's the Old Testament started out, and then you got the two choices, and that's how I see things. And you're welcome to accept or glean whatever information you want from this. I am new, and I'm doing my best to share how I see things, and I'm open for correction, just doing the best I can. Okay, so these three parts, sorry, lots of pictures. Okay, right, rainbow, the three parts, the body, the spirit, the soul. All that represents is body knowledge, spirit knowledge, and then when you bring soul knowledge, the light, Jesus, all turns into a rainbow. It's a symbolic representation of the rainbow, which I believe also represents God's covenant, rainbow covenant. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but that's just how I remember it. So with those triangles, they kind of represent this as well. Body knowledge, the outside of us. Spiritual knowledge, the next inner layer of us, and then the soul. And this is just how I saw things from reading the Bible. Okay. So I just wanted to mention really quickly with explaining that this is like realizing the Bible was connected this way, in the body, the spirit, the soul, and going back towards the beginning and seeing that he says that he created the heavens and the earth, and he says how long it took, and that was a big reason why I was able to start seeing like the Bible was God's knowledge. It started out with man in the Old Testament, then Jesus came and then brought the God knowledge. So that's how I'm kind of seeing things. But seeing it that way helped me to see that this was the way, because I had already studied a lot of religions and theories and kind of dabbled all around reading, because I like to read. And I noticed like everybody seems to have knowledge, but not all of it kind of matched. And when I read this, kind of brought everything together for me. This is my opinion, my experience, my journey, and I'm hoping it helps others. That's why I'm doing this. Okay, rainbow. I already talked about that. Okay, so no rainbow. If you go in my other videos, I talk about who I believe these three are that leads to destruction, because man is in charge of man, no longer God. These three triangles: body, spirit, soul. So I think Freemasonry is spiritual Egypt, and in my opinion, which of course you can study for yourself to try to decipher, I believe the Vatican is the body. Now, I just need to remind that I don't think anybody here in the body of, that church is bad, or in the body of this group. I think these are all very good people, and right, because there's levels. The only concern I have right now with the way I'm seeing things, and why I want other people to look into it, is whatever the group is at the top, top 10 people, or I don't know, but I believe there's knowledge up here that hasn't been shared with the public, and good people down here, not good, is my opinion. That's how I'm seeing things. And I learned about the balance of the universe. I've already been kind of studying and reading about those things for a long time, but the Bible had brought it all together for me. And I see things as excuse me, like a misconstrued balance maybe going on there, and like it's been turned to go this way when I think it's meant to go like this. I need to do a little more study on that, but this balance thing, you can kind of look into almost all religions, and they talk about like the balance of the universe and things like that, law of attraction, and I kind of read a lot about those things. So these are things for you to consider. Okay, why am I over explaining in these videos? Part of it is because as a part native person that didn't like church history of what was done, I personally, was stubborn to look at the Bible, and the few times that I did look in it, kind of went in looking for bad stuff, like, oh, that's a bad book. Like, of course it says that, things like that. It wasn't until I went searching to find the answer to a question, which led me to read more and more. And then I started to see, like, there was some really interesting knowledge in here. So that started in September, where I kind of slowly started reading in the evenings and on weekends. And I started to build, like, faith, I guess, towards, like, starting to believe, like, I think Jesus might be real. Because I read the New Testament first and then went backwards. So I recommend that too. Read the New Testament first, then go backwards. That's how I did it, and it was helpful. if you want to read, you can also move forward in faith as well. So in September, so I started going up, 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 and starting to believe Jesus from reading, and then in the beginning of March, I figured out, I made the decision that this is real, in my opinion, and I think Jesus really did come and die for humanity's sins to save us from beyond what we could fully understand. So I was like, I think this is real. So I did the walk on the journey of trying to figure out what to do on my own, which really only starts with accepting in your heart that Jesus had died for your sins, like, because part of that is, like, that shows, like, you believe, because if you said it with words but didn't believe, I don't know, does that count? I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on that part, but I'm just sharing, like, for me, what happened was the beginning of March is when it hit me that I think this is real, and I'm going to accept him as my capstone. That looks silly, but that's kind of how I'm seeing it. So I first thing I did is I confessed my sins, which was the commandments that I broke in my whole life, and told him the things that I did wrong, and that I was sorry, and that I didn't, not most of them I didn't do anymore, but that I wanted to do better and not break any more rules. So I started taking those commandments seriously, and I saw, I was coveting and things like that, so I worked on that, and then I realized, oh, it's not just about these 10 commandments. Like, Jesus wants us to love others as ourselves, and God with all our heart. And this is where the hard work is, because when we can't see God in our lives, it can be hard to grow that love. And for other people, how do you do that? And that's kind of where that started with my heart work, because God says we have heart of stone, and I kind of imagine that in my head as we only have half a heart until we have help, because he sends the Spirit down. He sends the Holy Spirit, which in my upbringing, I see that as he sends a piece of the Great Spirit. So I had that assistance, and I realized, I think the key was to forgive others, because he really was trying to teach, like, spiritual wickedness. Be careful of this spiritual wickedness, that this is what we fight. We don't fight amongst each others. Don't hate your brothers and sisters. It's the spiritual wickedness we need to be concerned about. Okay, and we are in a double-minded world, right? We got good thoughts and bad thoughts, and if somebody's followed a lot of those bad thoughts, that grows like a tree and gets worse and worse and worse unless they get help. And that's kind of how I see, like, we're all guilty of mistakes, and for me, learning about Jesus, figuring out Israel, that was the ultimate show of love, that he walked here in a human body, and he died to pretty much break the old law and bring the new law, and so that there's, no more sacrifices and things like that, because there's a part in there that God says he doesn't want animal sacrifices. He wanted us to work on our hearts. So I think there's been confusion or something. Anyways, I'm not an expert. It's just sharing my opinions. Hopefully, I'm hoping this is helpful. So I see that as the ultimate show of love, that he died to save us in the sense of becoming our capstone. And why would we need him as our capstone? It's not like it's not as bad as it seems. It's because we're in that double-minded world where there's very bad thoughts on one side and very good thoughts on the other. And depending on how you've controlled that through your life, if you're going through a lot of bad thoughts against yourself and against other people, I see it as when you accept Jesus as your Savior and look to him, it's a way of starting to heal the bad side of the double mind. Like now he is your capstone. I hope that makes sense. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to be honest. Okay, what's the next part I wanted to say? Okay, so with the no rainbow, and these people, spiritual Egypt, one of the things the Freemasonry do was not only the triangle up high, like representing we don't need a capstone, they cover one eye. And I kind of think that may have to do the way I see it is like that's what they're doing. Look to the world. Don't look to God. And part of the reason I see it that way is because the top, not the bottom, but Hollywood and things like that. Once you start learning about Jesus and you kind of start, learning and things like that, I started realizing and noticing in the TV shows and movies, they blaspheme Jesus' name excessively. So, and, a lot of those people are part of this group. Movie stars and singers, really high up. And you'll start to notice that yourself in TV shows and movies, and there's seems to be like, a lot of terrible talk about Jesus, but he was teaching love, and he sacrificed himself on the cross as the Son of God. So it's kind of, you start to feel upset that he's being spoken about in that way. Okay, moving on. So, okay, the ones that have found Jesus through faith and not through all of this, knowledge and working things out, the ones that have truly found Jesus, they have a good heart because their heart gets repaired. They start to love others as themselves. And anyone can find Jesus. They don't have to go to church. I did not go to church. I did this at home, on my own, not realizing I was ever going to share with anybody. And like I said, all I did was I confessed my sins to Jesus. I recognize now that he was real. Personally, I apologize to him that I didn't realize that he was real and that I thought so badly about the book. I said with my mouth that he was my Lord and Savior, and I started working on faith because if you go back to one of my old videos with the whole reflection of each other, these were, they had sight and signs by God, and here it's about no sight, no signs, but faith on the word. So you have to go to an older video, but there was a lot of reflections here to balance. I know there's like a disappointment about not working on the heart here. So I think Jesus was saying, like, part of the group over here, it was to prove, like, that they would work on their hearts without even seeing him. I don't know if that's correct. That's how I saw it. Okay. And don't rely on your own understanding. If you do need to read the Bible to try to figure out these things like I did, you need to pray. You need to ask the Creator or Jesus. You need to pray and ask for understanding and discernment, because it's a very complicated book. And as I was on my journey in September, I read a lot, right? But I didn't really understand a lot. I read so much that I started to believe that this was real. Okay? And then in March, when I did accept him in my heart, that's where things kind of skyrocketed for me. I started dreaming, and they were very unusual dreams, and I was telling my family. I didn't know what was going on. I knew they were unusual for me in my life, and I tried to move forward in my life, continuing normally working, and then I felt their importance, so I tried to put a video together in between work, and that was very hard to do. I was very tired. And then it continued from there, and the things, like, I kind of had a little bit of knowledge, and then I feel like my knowledge kind of went up. Okay, the Rainbow Covenant. So the 3 parts: body. Sorry, my phone beeped. Rainbow Covenant: physical Israel, spiritual Israel, and the soul of Israel, which is the 3rd part to come. So that's how I see that. I know I'm trying to make these videos short, and this video is already getting long. I just wanted to end with a lot of the dreams that I had since March. They were, when they started happening, I would write them down, but I didn't fully understand them. But I shared 3 that I believed were for other people, and the other ones I didn't really share because they didn't seem like it was something to share. But the ones that I shared was about the importance of facing yourself, whether you believe in Jesus or don't believe in Jesus, and of law being on the way. And a lot of the dreams have been about judgment, and I am telling the truth. They are not normal dreams for me personally. And in March, when the dreams started happening and things started happening and understanding more things, I went through a lot of ups and downs of stress, worry, not fully understanding what was happening. I felt like I was going forward half blind, not understanding if I had a message or what was happening. But this has been happening since March, and it has not stopped. And so I hope this explanation was helpful for someone to take that dive to either start studying or maybe watch a couple videos on YouTube to learn for yourself if you think Jesus was real. I strongly, highly recommend the AOC network. They're a really great YouTube channel. And I'm going to leave this video right here. Thank you for listening to me and trying to understand what I'm trying to say. Thank you.